After that, around 1:45, I have an interview with Miles Thomas from the Facebook group Save TVNZ7. No prizes there for guessing what we'll be discussing. But in a moment, to get the show started, I have our regular guest on the Thursday Wire, Selwyn Manning from livenews.co.nz. During the show, feel free to text the studio on 5395 with your musings. Texts cost 20 cents, or email us on studio@95bfm.com. Afternoon, Selwyn. How you doing?
Yeah, very good, thanks, Simon.
Cool. Now, this week we're talking about the dirty great convention centre SkyCity wants to build and sidelined issues. What's up with that?
Yeah, so what we're looking at here is a clear juxtapositioning by the opposition parties as a group, as a bloc, and the government trying to actually manoeuvre to get a clear strategy going, basically. This is classic politics here. The latest, I suppose, is a good way of illustrating this, and this is the Labour Party leader, David Shearer, calling on the Prime Minister, John Key, to come clean on what the Labour Party says is political interference. Now, clearly the Labour Party strategy here is to try and paint John Key in some sort of dodgy operator. And this issue is being used as a vehicle to try and get that message across to, the public in New Zealand, obviously. On the government side, it appears to know that the process that it has gone through over this convention centre for more pokies deal with SkyCity, that it doesn't appear to be above board in some way. So it's trying to divert attention away from the inner dealings that went on, the handshakes and the nods and the winks, to one where it's saying, well, does Auckland want a convention centre or not? So,
Selwyn, with the nods and the winks and the jiggery pokery, I believe people close to Key have got connections with SkyCity. Is that correct?
Well, what we do know is that way back in 2009, that the SkyCity chair of the board said to shareholders, we've got a very good relationship with the new government. It hasn't ever been better. Words to that effect. And what went on from there is he said, we've got very, very friendly people in decision-making roles in the government. We have cabinet ministers that are on a friendly basis. Now, it was that was the message he was giving to shareholders. At the same time, John Key, in written questions, had admitted that he went to SkyCity with saying, basically, put your hand up for this convention centre proposal that is coming through. If that comes through, from what we understand on that conversation was, if it comes your way, and I think it will, then we'll change the law to allow you to have more pokie machines on site. Now that's basically what we do know, and has been underscored and illustrated in the news reports that we've seen all week. John Key confirmed again while he was overseas, Simon, that it was he, John Key, the Prime Minister, under his role as Tourism Minister at the time, approached SkyCity. It wasn't the other way round. Now that in itself raises a whole lot of questions as to, well, why is the Prime Minister, albeit under his Tourism Minister kind of umbrella, actually getting involved in what would normally be an independent tender process, and going further than that, basically saying, well, you can have confidence in putting a tender in for this convention centre, because if you get it, we will change the law and make it easier for you to go into business.
Now, with that, is SkyCity the only company or organisation out there that can actually pony up the cash for a convention centre? Is this a sort of like a no competition bid that they've been engaging in?
What we know is that the Ministry of Economic Development handled a tender process that went along some sort of. This is where it gets difficult to explain, and certainly because it's vague. That we know the Ministry of Economic Development handled a tender process, but the actual how fair that process was, no one can kind of figure out. And I guess that's why there is so much attention on the Prime Minister's position on this back then and now, to see whether or not there was poor ethical judgments on his behalf relating to giving some sort of assurance or not. to SkyCity. The opposition parties, the Labour Party, New Zealand First, the Green Party, are all asking for the tender process to be opened up, to become transparent on this issue, so that everybody can see whether or not it was above board. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister said from Singapore this morning, no, he's got no interest in opening up the process, the tender process to public and open scrutiny again. So what that does is kind of leave this question mark around there, and the opposition parties are able to use this, to all their tactics to meet their strategy and trying to paint him as having something to hide. And really, it's counterproductive to the national-led government for that to occur.
Can Key grab the paintbrush back and paint himself out of this?
Well, what we saw in the last 3 years before the election was John Key could smile his way out of any kind of, cul-de-sac. It's a different story in this term. He is not on such friendly terms with the news media for a start. He's got a more energised opposition that are attacking his every move, with Winston Peters and co really fired up in that debating chamber, but outside of it as well. We've got an opposition that's actually doing its job this term. It's not an easy run. This morning we had Justice Minister Judith Collins wading in on this issue, and her message was, like I said at the beginning of the bulletin, all of this detail is counterproductive to actually getting jobs out there for people who need jobs to build this convention centre, and then the jobs that people would get once it's finished, its construction has concluded, the people that would be working in it. Certainly that's a benefit. Do people in Auckland actually want a convention centre? That was her message. So you can see the National Party is trying to actually move this whole issue across into an area where it's a simple black and white thing. Do you want it or do you not want it? And really that's a red herring, I think, Simon, in my view, because really what we're trying to figure out is, was the Prime Minister correct in the methods he used to try and advance this idea of getting the convention centre up and running, or was he just looking after his mates in the big business area?
Yeah, it certainly seems that, it's been a black and white issue. I'm wondering, the media does struggle with that a bit. How do you're trying to get people's attention, how do you put nuance in there?
It's always a difficult one, but I think, in understanding, what I'm talking about here with the strategies that are being used, what it does is, from a journalist's point of view, is it indicates really the difference between what a party wants to occur. So you can see through their motivations to a degree. Like the opposition parties want to make him look like he's a dodgy Prime Minister. Obviously the National Party wants to look after business, and it wants to get things going. It doesn't want to have things stuck in red tape and sitting there forever and ever. So you can see the motivations on the two things. The National Party certainly doesn't want its Prime Minister, its leader, John Key's, the National Party's star. It doesn't want that kind of gloss affected to the degree where it's going to lose popular appeal. So looking at these things, you look at the strategy and their motivations, but then you've got to go back into the detail of the nitty-gritty of the facts, and really that's where it isn't very clear for the public to see what are the facts here, what was going on. The question marks remain. The answers are not flowing from the National Party in government at the moment. What was the discussions, the nature of the discussions, and what were the promises that were given, if there were any promises given? And it just seems like there's a big cloak of, unknowns around this, which is not healthy for the credibility of the Prime Minister at this time.
It'll be interesting to see how this pans out, and whether or not this convention centre goes ahead, whether or not it will suck or blow money into the economy. Thanks for talking to us today, Selwyn. As always, very informative and enlightening, and hope you have a good week.
Okay, Simon, you too. Have a good day. Bye.
That was Selwyn Manning from livenews.co.nz. We were just talking about the shenanigans going about the tender process for the SkyCity casino. Now, coming up after the